Hi everybody, my name is Kathy Collins and I'm a literacy educator, and welcome to this little series of videos designed for parents and caregivers of young children. And at first I made this thinking of people who have kids in their homes who are not yet reading words in their books, thinking about ways you could support their reading development. But then I realized that a lot of these tips in the videos also hold true for children who can read words in books. So this is for anybody who has the pleasure of reading aloud and reading with a child. If that's something that's going on in your life, well, first of all, you're very lucky because that's such just a joyful, lovely interaction. But also, there's so much opportunity to support and engage your child as a reader. So the first thing I'm going to do in this video is offer you an inclusive definition of reading, a definition that includes children who are not yet reading words. If we think about the act of reading, our ultimate goal is to understand. Anything we read, we want to understand. Of course, reading with 100% accuracy, reading every word like with a chef's kiss, perfection is important, but we also want to make sure we understand. So our youngest children might not be able to read the words in the books, but they can certainly do a lot of heavy lifting as understanders, as meaning makers. So we want to really support that when they're little. So in this video, this first video, I'm going to be talking about reading pictures, how it's so important we help children be active, engaged readers of pictures, illustrations in their books. So to start, just to kind of, I almost wanted to say get on the same page, but these are three universal, not up for argument really, they're pretty well agreed upon ways that we can support our young children's reading. Of course there's more, but one might argue that these are the big three. The first one is to read aloud to your child as much as possible. And I don't want to center this on books because of access issues, especially in this time when we don't have, many of us don't have access to libraries, bookstores, classroom and school resources. So when I say read aloud to your child, it doesn't have to be picture books or books. It could be anything. It could be reading aloud song lyrics. It could be reading aloud literally texts on your phone. You get a text from a distant relative. You can say, oh, Grandma texted, listen to what she has to say. Reading aloud environmental print, approaching a store with a sign on the window and saying to your child, oh, let's read this, and reading that aloud to your child. So this doesn't, just know I'm not intending it to just mean reading aloud beautiful picture books to your child. Talking with your child and your children as much as possible. There is such a close relationship and correlation with speaking skills and reading skills. And the more we talk with our child, the more we're supporting their vocabulary, their grammar, their syntax, their content knowledge. So having conversations with your child especially about their topics of interest. When your child is paying attention to something, it's so important to wrap that up in words and language. So talking with your child, and I also want to say talking with your child in your home comfort language, whether it's whatever language is the most comfortable in the home, and reading aloud to your child in that language as well. The third thing is on here is reading with your child, which I'm creating a little distinction. Reading to your child is where they're leaning into you and they might be looking away and as you're reading aloud. But reading with your child is issuing an invitation. Do you want to read this together? And we know even with our youngest children, when we say, can we read this together? They're able to read it because they can read the pictures, which is what I'm going to support you with, and thinking about ways you can help your child. So let's, when we're reading the pictures, here are just 4 quick things, and I'm going to try to move my video head to a other place on this slide. I hope it works. But when we're reading the pictures, these are the simple moves we want to make. We want to notice as much as we can together. So we'll name out things we see in the picture. We'll invite the child to name out things that they see in the pictures and illustrations. And when we notice something, we want to say as much as we can. So if your child says, there's a dog, we might say, or, you know, it's dog, we might say, oh, look at that dog. What's that dog doing? Dog's running. Yeah, he's running through the park. So it's kind of like almost like a table tennis. Your child says something, we say something back, your child says something back, and we're just trying to get as much language generated as possible. We want to take a playful approach, and I could have said a warm approach. This isn't meant to be some kind of low-key assessment where we say to our child, what are 3 things we see on this page? Or what are 3 things that start with J that we see on this page? We're not trying to make this stressful and test-like. So just keep that, you know, your natural disposition and interaction with the child. I don't know, maybe it's unnecessary to say, but there it is. And then the fourth one is purling language with a child, which I guess I should have connected more to saying as much as you can. So if the child says, there's a dog, say, yeah, that's a big dog. Wonder what kind of dog that is. Do you think that's a blah blah dog? Whether your child knows that no, actually that's a, you know, that's a Boston Terrier, not a common Swishy hair terrier. I don't know, I'm making it up. But it's not even necessary that your child knows that kind of, you know, what kind of dog that is. It's just, it's airing language, and it's elasticizing that, you know, dog, but that there's kinds of dogs. Oh, there's a dog. Say, yeah, look at that dog. It's so cute. Look at his face. Look at that dog's face in the picture. He's happy. Ooh, I wonder why he's happy. And maybe your child points and there's a bone on the page and you say, oh yeah, he's happy. He sees that bone. So that's a way of purling language, kind of taking the little, what might be a little thing your child gives you and purling it into something more. Now, little caveat here, of course, be present with your child. Sometimes children get impatient and they just want to keep turning the pages. So it's kind of important to just not belabor something if your child is desperate to move on. So these things might not work on every single page, but you know, if you notice a child is just paused on a page for a bit, that's often a place where you could do some of this work. So I wanted to show you using this book. Let me slide my face out of here. This book, 10 Minutes Till Bedtime by Peggy Rathman. She also wrote Goodnight Gorilla, which is of a kind. And the publisher is Puffin Books, and I want to thank Puffin Books in advance for letting me share images from 10 Minutes Till Bedtime. But anyway, let's take a quick look at one of the pages from 10 Minutes Till Bedtime. So you'll see on this page there's just 4 words. So you could read this through just being word-based and be finished in a second. Or you could read this through reading the words and reading the pictures and issuing invitations for your child to notice, to say as much as they can, to be playful, and expand language in terms of vocabulary and syntax. So a funny thing happened. I was reading this with a child once in a preschool classroom. I think the child was about 3, and we were looking at this, and the child has read this book before, so he was familiar. And so I said something, and I made an assumption, and I said, "What's the dad doing?" And the child looked at me kind of like, "That's not the dad, that's the grandpa." And I said, "Oh, it's a grandpa. What makes you think it's a grandpa?" And the child says, "No hair." And I said, "Oh, now so here's an example of that purling." I said, "Oh yeah, he has no hair. He's he's kind of bald, isn't he?" Or something to that effect. So the child goes from no hair, and I give some vocabulary to that. He's bald. And you know, what's the child doing? What's the Grandpa doing? He's reading. Yeah, and then, so the child might say he's reading, and then I could say, yeah, he looks so comfortable. Look at him. He's got his comfy slippers on. He looks like he's in his comfy chair. It looks like maybe he's drinking some tea. So he's ready to be comfortable. So the child notices something, and I can pearl it with language. So books like these, I don't know, I've read these books 1 trillion times in my life, because I bet you if I picked this up today, I would probably notice something I've never noticed before in these books. These books are really rich books to read the pictures. But now I want to show you in a book that isn't kind of like 10 minutes till bedtime. So how it might look when you're reading with a child. Say you're reading a book like Windows, a picture book. Just even on the cover, I could just pause and say, oh my gosh, there's so much going on in this cover. And I can say, you know, look at this kid, he's walking his dog. And I could say to a child, look at what the dog is doing. It looks like he's saying something. And the child might look, and what could he be saying? Like, let's go, let's go. And then we could notice the little details in the picture, what people are doing in the windows. And as we turn the pages, our child might say, you know, can you read the words? And then I could even say to my child, yeah, you know what? I'll read the words, and you read the pictures. And you show me something that you read in the pictures. So at the end of the day, before the town goes to sleep, you can look out your window. And then I could say, so let's read the pictures. What do you see? And so depending on what the child says, look at the dog. He's on the couch. And I could say, yeah, look at his face. What does that dog want? And we could have a conversation about what's in the pictures. Something that generates oral language, that receptive and expressive oral language helps expand vocabulary and syntax, and just also tunes a child's attention into really paying attention and making meaning in the pictures. So that's an example, quick example. Again, this book is Windows. It's published by Candlewick Press. Thank you, Candlewick, for letting me share. This book was purchased at a Water Street bookstore in Exeter, New Hampshire. I always like to call out independent bookstores whenever I can. So with that in mind, I invite you tonight or whenever you're reading to your child to just kind of pay attention. If they're pausing, if you see their eyes darting around a picture, pausing and saying, so what are you noticing in the picture? And I might even use words like, what are you reading in this picture? So they get that idea that you can read the picture. And then whatever they say to me, I'm going to try to respond to get more language and vocabulary and syntax generated. And so with that, I just want to say thank you for joining me in this video. If you have any questions, feedback, comments, my email, you'll see it on the slide, kcollins15@mac.com, and at Twitter at kathycollins15. So thank you so much. Have a great day. Take care.